Hey everybody, this is Doc Mack from the Galloping Ghost Arcade out in Brookfield, Illinois. Today is Wednesday, December 18th, 2019, and we are here for this week's podcast, the Galloping Ghost Arcade podcast, Galloping Ghost podcast.
GGP.
As always, yes?
Wait, no, that's Productions.
Yes, or Pinball.
Oh, right.
As always, I am joined by former Gamer of the Year, Pete Hahn. And today our very special guest is Ken Walker, our Master Tech from Galloping Ghost Pinball.
Hey folks.
Thank you all so much for being here. Gonna be a we'll forego. I know we've got to do a podcast pretty soon, a guest-less podcast, because we have so much going on, as always.
We do.
And so many scores to talk about, but love having guests on, especially Ken has been around the arcade and pinball since its inception, so who better to have on than Ken?
Yeah, thank you very much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
He made a guest appearance on the last podcast with
Your doppelganger.
Yes. I am
Scott Lambert.
I am not Scott Lambert.
You are not.
Those of you guys who missed that interview, Scott is an excellent interviewer, so it was great.
Yeah.
Check it out.
For those that missed that gag in the last podcast, we had Ken here, and it goes back too long ago. Pete called me up one day, and
to be fair, this isn't like 2012 or 2013. This is a while ago.
This was a while ago.
That's right.
Preface this.
Let's preface this.
And I probably only met you once, maybe twice.
And Ken has been coming here since the start, helping us with some of our pinball machines. And one day, Pete calls me up and he's like, Scott Lambert is here, and walked in like he owned the place and went right to the back room, and he's working on our pins right now. What's going on with that? And I'm like, what? Like, Scott's working on our pinball machines. That's very out of character.
Yeah.
So I come over and I'm looking all around, and I see Ken walking around. I'm like, hey Ken, what's going on? And I'm like, Pete, I don't see Scott Lambert here at all. And he's like, he was just here. And then went back, and there was only Ken. It's awesome. Kind of stuck since then.
Yeah.
And then plus a few
random, hey Scott, and
at
MGCs,
and
usually.
And
so it's not just me.
No,
not just you.
Okay, good. I've since learned the difference.
Yes. So anyway, Ken, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about how you got into playing pinball? What was your first experiences with pinball?
Well, it goes back a ways. Actually, I gotta admit, I really started out loving arcade games. I was really blown away by Pac-Man. I just remember 6 machines wide, 4 or 5 people deep, quarters lined up on the bezels, local Showbiz Pizza in Darien, and just blew me away that you could actually interact with a TV set. That was amazing. And so I fell in love with arcade games, especially like simulations. Star Wars was the sit-down. Star Wars was just fantastic. I could be Luke Skywalker, so that was awesome. I did play pinball in college, but mostly I played arcade games. There was a laundromat that I would bring my clothes, and I'd get 2 rolls of quarters, one for the laundry machines and one to play video games while everything was washing and drying. And that was how I spent an afternoon. And I would play pinball here and there, but mostly I remember Vindicators and Vindicator. My roommate and I played a lot of Vindicators.
Great game.
That was a lot of fun. So fast forward to adulthood, and my son Andrew, who's now 21, he was probably about 5 or 6. My daughter was born. She was loud, and so we would just kind of escape, looking for something to do. And I found a pinball machine, put some money in it, and he seemed kind of interested. Not that big of a deal. But fast forward a few months, I happened to notice a local place called Chris's Green Pocket here in Brookfield, and they had a Twilight Zone. And
Nice.
Andrew was, came up to about here on me. Loved putting the money in. And by the way, Andrew has autism, so this was sort of our way to connect. He loved putting the money in. I would play the game. He'd shoot the ball. We made like pretty good tag team. We'd show up with $5, 6 credits for $5, and then we would play. And in the process of just hanging out with my son and having a great time, I got hooked on the rule set of Twilight Zone. And so I started researching, and I got a hold of Steve Epstein, and who put me in touch with Roger Sharp and his sons Josh and Zach. And I know I'm totally name dropping here, but I didn't know who Steve Epstein was. I didn't know who Roger Sharp was. Didn't know the significance of his sons. If you know those names, you know that this was pretty significant. And in 2005, I joined the Chicago Pinball League, and I've been involved with them ever since. And it's just been fantastic. So that was, again, like my journey probably started about 2003, late 2003, 2004, went up to MGC, realized just how crazy this world was, and then in late 2004, through a series of circumstances, I got into competitive pinball and pinball repair. So the other thing is that I went to college to become an aircraft mechanic, learned how to fix planes, and as probably scary as it sounds, fixing pinball machines and fixing aircraft are pretty similar.
Really?
About continuity. You got point A to point B in the wiring harnesses, and then everything else is how you can press, screw, rotate mechanisms, put it together, and do the adjustments, and move on.
Is the playfield of a pinball similar to the surface of a plane?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not. But the connectors and the harnesses are.
Okay.
They're built basically the same way. Connectors, a lot of the connectors are very similar. And especially like when you talk about aircraft interiors, business jets, and that type of thing. If you're unplugging like a coffee machine, it's the same Molex connectors that you'd find in any one of these machines here.
Oh.
It's funny. I remember we were just trying to track down grommets for the grid joysticks, and we ended up having to go to a airline parts manufacturer to get the actual grommets because it's what they use in flight sticks.
Yeah.
And a small modification, and that's what Midway used back in the day.
Wow, that's cool.
If you've got questions for Ken, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll ask him as we go. And
yeah,
anything you want, repair or specific questions.
So Todd asks, what is the most difficult pinball machine you have ever worked on? That is, I'd have to say that the most difficult's the next one. There's always a new challenge. There's always something that comes on. But I would have to say that Predator is a challenge.
I was going to say there's no documentation for that, right?
There's no documentation for Predator. And so, to me, the answer is any machine that doesn't have documentation that you can look up, or some of the guides, some of the repair guides that are out there. So,
and the Predator has that added challenge of it's PC based,
right?
It's Windows PC based, and then
so super stable is what you're saying,
right? No solid shutdown procedure for it, and while a very unique game, it can be problematic. I do like the Aliens pinball machines.
Yeah, Aliens is a great game. That one's a little bit of a challenge just because parts scarcity. A lot of surface mount board parts, and those are difficult to repair. We had one node board that blew up, and it's on my to-do list of ever getting it over to where I work for a day job, getting over and using the microscope and trying to fix that and pull some of the components off. So anything that's surface mount is tricky.
What a lot of people have voiced opinions over regular bulbs versus LEDs.
Oh,
and
man.
cabinet upgrades and such. What's your thoughts on that?
Go with what you like. Go with what looks good to you. I like LEDs because they tend to not burn out. When LEDs first came out, I didn't care for them just because they were very bluish tints. The whites were blue. The colors were not very bright. You couldn't really get a. They're very directional. So now they have come up with lenses that have made kind of a unidirectional. They've come up with a warm white. The flickering and the ghosting and the strobing effect that can happen has been minimized, and so I like them. But I know there's purists out there who absolutely say no.
The same
Especially
thing.
on electromechanicals.
What do you think about the color DMDs kits that are coming out? Like,
I love them.
I think they look
I love
amazing.
'em. They would have used them back in the day.
If they had them, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to get a Vichy display now is about $200, and an LED fully working LED LCD screen is about $400. So it may have been an upgrade. It may have been a $400 or $500 upgrade back in the day, but they would have used them.
Okay.
So.
What are some of the and hey, by the way, asking what are some of the coolest customs that you've seen?
So right away you triggered Twilight Zone, which by the way is the game that my son and I learned to play. There's 42 pages of rules on that game alone.
Jeez.
And I love it. I absorbed it because that was the game that was at Chris's Green Pocket. Which, should we clue them in on what Chris's Green Pocket is?
The Green Pocket, Chris's Green Pocket, was what the arcade was before. That was the last business that was there before we took it over. I had played quite a bit there. They had Ultimate Mortal Kombat and Tekken machines and a fairly solid arcade lineup and pinball lineup when I was going there. And they closed down, and
I think it was the smoking laws. They passed smoking laws. I think the 18 to 21-year-olds would hang out at the pool halls, and that was where they smoked. Because Andrew and I would come home, and my wife would make us strip down on the back porch and be like, right to the shower, keep your clothes outside. We smelled pretty bad. And I think they shut down pretty much after that.
So
and it was too bad because we really liked that game. We played Twilight Zone like crazy. So to answer your question, I really like the slot machine mod on Twilight Zone. The ball rolls through it. It kind of wraps over the cross ramp, and it rolls the slot machine reels as the ball passes under it. So it's a pretty neat mod. But again, modifications are another one. Like if you like them, do them. If you don't, you don't. Some are pretty expensive. Some are pretty crazy.
I know there was definitely a lot of them, a lot of options for Twilight Zone and so many of the games, and it is it's that above and beyond. We don't really have much of any on ours. We've tried to keep them all original, but
well, the toppers don't really count, right? Because they don't affect the play.
Yeah, they're not on the actual play field,
right?
Like we've got our.
So the one modification that we have done is the gumballs in the gumball machine on Twilight Zone.
Right.
So I got those from Terry at Pinball Life. Had a special on a bag of those little plastic balls. Don't use real gumballs, by the way.
Right.
They degrade over time and they'll ruin your game. Hey, Todd's got a great question. 42 pages of rules for Twilight Zone. The Internet Pinball Database is where all 6,000 plus pinballs are listed. Anything and everything that's been on there. And then it has rule sets. It has maintenance manuals. It has ROMs, game ROMs, owners lists. Internet Pinball Database ID. Internet Pinball Database IPDB.org is where those are.
Cool. Yeah, and you mentioned there's thousands and thousands of pins. Like, where do you recommend they start? Like, keeping in mind that it's like, do you go with from the beginning? Go with like early EMs and advance, or what do you suggest?
I recommend people go. Scott Lambert's got a comment. We probably should make sure we focus on at some point. I recommend people go to pinball shows, video game shows. Midwest Gaming Classics coming up in a couple of months. Pinball Expo was just a couple of months ago. There's it used to be only Expo, and there's pinball shows all over the country, all over the world, and I recommend going there and just kind of seeing what you like. Look at a theme. Hey, I like Twilight Zone, or hey, I like Ninja Turtles, or I like Elvira, right? So then you kind of gravitate toward those games and you play them and you see what works.
Do you find that people tend to be more driven towards a theme or play, like the skill of a game? And how do you get to that? Again, you go to an MGC or Pinball Expo and you've got so many machines. It's like, how do you get something? Because even if you have a theme you like, as the player going to grasp what they're doing?
Yeah, that's tricky. I would say that we've had proof in the pudding this week that theme rules everything until the gameplay comes out. And so Spooky Pinball just last Sunday released Rick and Morty Pinball. So Rick and Morty, not everybody's familiar with that theme. It's kind of a niche theme, but they sold out in under 3 hours.
Wow.
People just barely saw the playfield, and they just sold everything out. All 750 limited versions. So theme, absolutely. People went crazy for Munsters. I really like Munsters. I think it's a fun game, but people think it's not deep enough. So that's another, what happened about a year ago. Everybody went crazy for Munsters, but then the code is what the code is, and so the rule sets are what the rule sets are. That's not for everybody. Some of the higher level players think it's too basic. I think it's fun, and I haven't beat it yet, so I'm obviously not one of the higher level players.
Where would someone get started if they're trying to get competitive about pinball? Like, is there like you just go to a website and sign up, or what?
IFPApinball.com
Okay.
is where all the players are ranked. We have close to 80,000 registered pinball players. But I just recommend that people go to that site and look at the calendar and then just show up. So the only way to get registered on that site is to play in competitive pinball environments. So we are having a pinball tournament coming up here at the pinball, at Ghost Pinball, on the 29th. And so if you go to IFPApinball.com, click on the calendar, the tournaments link, and there's a calendar. Put Brookfield, Illinois, or 60513, and narrow the radius down, and you'll see all the tournaments that are coming up. There's one coming up in Elk Grove Village. We just had one at Brixie's last night. So that's the way to go. To the point too. Not just go to pinball shows. Go to your local arcades. Come to the Galloping Ghost. Go to Brixie's. Go to Logan.
Retrocade.
Underground Retrocade, definitely.
Prince Arcades.
Pac-Man. Just check out the games you like and play. And realize that it's not just batting a ball around for points. That's sort of the end result to win competitively, but it's about the rule sets.
That's
what got me hooked on Twilight Zone, was the rule set.
That's definitely one of the big barriers from the casual player that thinks that they're just batting ball around and the score is going up, and they don't really understand the modes and the
a lot of objectives.
Exactly, the objectives that you're trying to accomplish, and it does have that progression to it, not unlike the video game side. How much of that is do you think it's more enticing for players to just kind of find stuff on their own, or do you see that if they get either explained or if they actually read the rule cards, and that's one of the big things, so much of it is in the rule cards.
Right, the rule cards right on the apron explain the basics on what to do. But I know a lot of people who just like to play pinball who don't do the competition side of it. Greg, my evil twin over here at Galloping Ghost, he's not really big into the competitions, but he loves playing them.
Mhm.
So, don't let the competition topic, sway anybody. It's not all about competitive pinball. I find it pretty stressful myself, but I enjoy it, so I keep coming back to it. But I play a lot better pinball when I'm just playing by myself or playing casually with friends than if I've got money or these Whopper
Tournament.
tournament points on the line. That's just general head games, right? If you're under a lot of stress, you play differently. Some people thrive in that environment.
Yep.
Some people can tune everything out. So.
How do you think it's changed as there's just been a boom in pinball in so many places? Actually, the increase of machines being produced, just more and more people getting into it. How is it, having been around it for so long and watching this evolution and this resurgence? What do you think of it? Do you think it'll continue? Do you think it'll hit that peak and drift off, or is it just in the early?
That's a good question. I was always kind of wanting the explosion of pinball to happen. So I try to be like the pinball evangelist, like, hey, come out to the tournaments, go to the shows. I would invite my friends, just try to see what's going on. But aside from that, I'd love to take credit, but it wasn't just me. There's a lot of people who've discovered it. A lot of ladies were involved. When I first got into it, I could probably name like all 10 ladies who were part of pinball, and now they have their own women's leagues. So pinball leagues are another thing to get in on. That's a tricky question. I wish I could predict that future, because I love the explosion of pinball, and even I wasn't prepared for the fact that games are now supply and demand. The prices are through the roof. Hawaii Canal 89 actually has a question: how affordable is buying a pinball machine? Are there any cheap ones? It depends on what you like. I started off with the electromechanicals. I really enjoy electromechanicals, and some of them are pretty fun. They may not have the same depth, but you can get 5 or 6 games going in the same time period it takes you to play, like, say, a game of Elvira. If you enjoy that and want to push harder and faster, those are great fun too. The early solid states. So there are some affordable pinball machines out there. You have to have space too, and you have to be able to lift them.
Where does one look for those, though? Is it the same type of thing where you look on the KLOV forums, or?
Craigslist, Free Cycle, eBay is not cheap, but they are there.
Mm-hmm.
Local just garage sales, yard sales, estate sales.
As there's so many moving parts and so many deep problems that some machines develop over years and years and years of play, how do you vet out a machine if you're planning on buying it? What are some telltale signs that maybe this machine is going to be more of a hassle?
That question is really broad. So the really basic stuff is like flipper strength. Make sure that all the mechanisms work, all the switches work. If you can play the game glass off. Sometimes you're at somebody's house and they're trying to sell something on the cheap, and they don't have keys for it. You may just have to buy it sight unseen. The real trick is how affordable a pinball machine is. If it's broken or if it's working 100%, if it's home use only, if it was bought new in box. All these things. So you can get cheap pinball machines out there, but you have to be able to fix them. And there's pinrepair.com, there's pinwiki.com. There's a lot of places online that allow you to learn how to fix your own machines. That's a good way to start. You have to know how to solder if you're going to do board work. If you don't, you're going to need to spend additional money to send it out to someone who can do board repair. If you can do basic mechanical information, then you have to kind of have a resource to repair the pinball machines, because stuff will wear out. And so basic flipper strengths, you got to be able to make the ramps, you got to be able to make the shots, or actually they tend to not be very fun if they're set up too clunky.
Well,
That's an official term. Clunky.
there's so many resources out there. Can you name a few that are open to, like, especially with like pricing? Pricing of machines is kind of all over the place. Again, it's always going to be based on the condition of the machine and the demand of the machine. But as it's booming, we see people that are just putting outrageous prices and just kind of fishing for people who maybe it's going after people they don't know what they're going to be buying. Or
I've seen it on the video game side too, though. Like
oh,
when the
definitely,
kids,
100%.
And classic cars and boats and aircraft and anything that you're going to buy that's high end or even just like a hobbyist kind of thing, you have to know what you're buying. So definitely hang out at the shows. That's another great way to do it. If you can play it, the best way to do it is if you can play the machine first and you have the seller's guarantee. And of course people lie, but I'm saying is if you can talk to somebody and you get a sense that, hey, they've taken care of this machine, they may show you their workroom with the parts. They may have several machines. If you get a machine and it's been sitting in a garage for several years versus a guy who's got it in his basement next to another 5 or 6 machines, he's probably either taken care of it himself or he's had professional help to come in to fix it.
Do you do that? Do you do house calls for people?
I used to. Part of my pinball journey was taking in games. At one point I had about 12 machines at my parents' place. And I used to have like a side job of doing repairs. And since pinball opened up next door, I've been spending all my spare time here. So
if someone
that
has
works out good for me.
problems with their machine, who would you recommend they call locally, if not you?
Gavin's Game Repair.
Okay.
I gotta put a shout out to Gavin. He may hate me for saying that, but he's got a lot of business. But there are guys out there.
Okay.
So,
What are some things that might seem intimidating? Like you got rust on the legs and
electricity is intimidating.
Sure, but what is that?
That's one thing I always just tell people. Like, if you're not comfortable doing something, be careful because you can do damage to the machine if you're not careful, or you can injure yourself.
What about damage to the actual playfield? Like if there's scuffs, scrapes, wear on the actual playfield, is the machine not a viable machine anymore, or what are the solutions?
That really just depends on your opinion on a game. I'm a player, so to me, having artwork missing or scuffs or scrapes, I want to flatten them out. I want to try to make the ball roll smooth. But some of these machines are 40, 50 years old. We're coming up on 50 years old on Fireball.
Fireball, yeah.
Sure.
So to say, well, that game doesn't play like new, well, because it's almost as old as I am. So you have to kind of take the good and the bad. If you're a collector and money's no object, you can afford the latest and greatest of everything you want, and then it can be smooth as glass, and you can wipe it with a diaper and never play it, and it remains perfect forever, or you can play it, which is what these machines were designed for.
It's like a car.
Just like a car.
Yeah. I mean,
Best thing you can do is not drive the car off the lot, right?
Yeah.
And what's the fun in that?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. What even with new machines, like I remember Monster Bash, loved it. Chicago Gaming very generous to lend us a machine for a while before it came out. But it's pinball. There's so many moving parts. You're shooting a metal ball around, hitting plastic, and there's bound to be some problems. And it was like maybe 1 or 2 games in where it was like, okay, well, this needs to be adjusted. And going into it, do you think that the majority of the pinball players do they have the mindset that it is going to be something that it's going to be maintenance galore, or?
It really depends on how much you play it and how many air balls you get or any kind of craziness. That's really hard to answer because Some games hold up better than others. Some games need a lot more attention. The Gottliebs are a little bit more, I don't want to say flaky, they're a little bit more finicky. We've been wrestling with Caveman for a while. It'll work great, then all of a sudden it'll lose a connection. So it really kind of depends on the game, how much it gets played. I'm actually blown away by how well Twilight Zone and Creature from the Black Lagoon have held up, just because they get played so much.
What do you think of older games versus newer games? Like, is there any big difference? Like, do you see a ton of maintenance on the newer machines?
It depends. It really depends. I think the WPC Williams of the '90s was really kind of the pinnacle of construction. The Gottliebs are actually constructed very well, so their mechanicals do not break down. They're not the best with the electronics, but I think the WPC was sort of the height that everybody's trying to get to. And so I've seen Stern really step up what they're doing. Jersey Jack has put out some pretty amazing machines, but they are, anytime you're going to get a steel ball rolling across wood and plastic, stuff's gonna wear. And so with regular waxing, cleaning, and changing parts, games should last a long time.
And you've got a little bit of the inside track on. You've worked on pinball machines. You've helped with the creation.
Yeah, I worked on a game called Whoa Nelly. It was a concept game back when pinball was kind of at a low spot. It's since seen a really resurgence since that time. That was in 2009, right around the time the arcade was opening up. So part of my pinball journey was not just joining Pinball League and meeting a whole bunch of fantastic people in the industry and doing my own in-home game repair type of stuff, but I got involved with building a custom machine with Dennis Nordman and Greg Ferreras and a couple other individuals that eventually went on to become a production machine at Stern, and that design has been used on other themes as well. Pabst Blue Ribbon Can Crusher and Primus, which is based off the band Primus.
Do you have any thoughts of designing or developing games in the future?
I got all of that out of my system with Whoa Nelly. It was a lot of fun. I've got credit on the Internet Pinball Database as doing the mechanicals on the original games, but it's an interesting thing, but there's really no magic formula on what's going to make a good game, what's going to make a bad game, and there's a lot more talented people than me, so I know my limitations. I'm happy playing them and fixing them.
Did you have that at MGC like 2011 or 12? I think I remember seeing it there like before it was in production.
Yeah, they had 2009 was the concept, 2010 was some artwork concept, and then we were flipping it. There's some YouTube video of Roger Sharp and Dennis and Greg playing the whitewood, and then they added the artwork and we honed the machine.
Cool.
And in 2012 we sold all 4 machines. So that was a great journey. I loved doing it. The economy was kind of down. Again, the industry wasn't doing so great, and I'd like to think that from that little machine that we made in Dennis's garage kind of saw the birth of Spooky Pinball and Jersey Jack and a lot of other pinball manufacturers who are, some of them not with us anymore, but it was a good time to experiment, and it really kind of set the bar on where we are today. And right or wrong, whether you love the game or hate the game, Whoa Nelly was a part of history, and I was really pleased to be a part of it.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. We got some questions.
Yeah. Kaz asking, have you ever seen somebody break glass on a pinball machine by either sitting on it or hitting it with the ball?
I've heard of somebody smacking the lockdown bar in anger and breaking glass, but that generally doesn't happen. Tempered glass is very strong on the face side and very weak on the side. So the worst thing you can do with pinball glass is to set it on concrete, and that's when it will shatter. and Doc, I broke one of your pieces of glass loading it into my car.
Yes.
I was transferring it from Greg's car to my car after visiting Pinball Life, and I was trying to slide it in, and it just shattered in my hand, and
Broke into a million pieces.
I wish they were real diamonds. But no, I've never seen a pinball breaking glass. It's usually when you're handling the glass, that's when they break.
Yeah. What are so somebody's planning on getting a pinball machine. What else do you suggest that they stack up on, and what parts and tools, and what do they need to maintain a pinball machine?
Oh man, well I got my toolbox over there in the corner, but a good multimeter. I would get one that is auto ranging, so that you don't have to guess whether you're reading 100 ohms or 1,000 ohms. Anything that takes away math, I will pay good money for. So that's a given. Basic tools, wire strippers.
What's your soldering iron of choice?
Soldering iron. My buddy bought me a Weller soldering station,
Okay.
and I like that. I also like the Hakos. I have some of your old Hako desoldering and soldering stations, and I use those. I was using the Hako last night on Elvira and the Party Monsters.
Mm.
We had a relay problem, and so we had to trying to desolder that relay so that we could clean it, and we got it running. So
If again, you've been to so many shows and so many collectors. What are some games that you've always wanted to play but haven't?
Good question. I would have answered Krull, but I went to Expo this past year, and Troy Smith. Shout out to Troy Smith. He acquired a Krull. One of 10 made. 2 I think were destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever played a Krull, then you probably know who owns them. They are very rare. And he brought one to let everybody play at Expo, and that was fantastic.
Absolutely.
So that was one of the games I would have liked to have played. I would like to see Loch Ness Monster. That's one that I've seen. Total Recall. That's a good one. That was a double machine. I don't know if it shared a ball, but it was like imagine Siamese twins. 2 pinball machines connected at the head, but 2 different play fields. That was a concept game a couple years ago.
Interesting.
Don't know what happened to it, but never went to production. It was just a concept game. I like the oddball ones. I love your collection. I always wanted to get on a Predator and play it. I was never able to get close to it. And Alien's a great game. The first time I saw that in 2016, I thought this is a fantastic game.
Joust is the same. Joust has to be the same way. Yeah,
Joust is a great game.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody good. Oh yeah, King Kong. I've played it. It's okay. It's good. It's a good game. I wouldn't pay the money that title commands, but it's a fun game.
It's pricey,
and I have played it.
How again? How many times did it take to play a machine for you to get kind of hooked on it? Because I know there's several machines that when we were picking them up, you were, it's good, and you would often say that you just hadn't had enough time on it, and then coming back to it, you were like, oh, I really like this game.
I like Q*bert.
Q*bert.
Q*bert's very basic concept, but it's tricky.
Yeah.
So it's like Pac-Man. Really easy game, but get to that kill screen is really tough. It gets harder and faster and harder and faster. Q*bert's like that. There's certain objectives you have to go for, and I find myself, especially if I just have 5 minutes to kill, that's a great game to go to. So, and I have a Stern Star Trek Pro at my house. I love playing that game.
Yeah.
That game's a lot of fun.
How many machines do you have at your house now?
Right now, I have 3 machines. My Stern Star Trek Pro. I've got a buddy's Supersonic, which is an early Bally game. And then I've got a bagatelle game from 1933 called Blackstone. And that's more of like a piece of furniture than anything. It's an old gambling machine, but it has the pins and the little ball, and you shoot it and nudge it. Try not to tilt, which is a mechanical tilt.
Tim Foley asking, what game theme really turns you off, but the game is awesome?
Oh, man.
Stumper.
That is a stumper.
Yeah.
I don't like any organized crime games. So I'm not a big Sopranos fan. I'm not a big fan of Mafia or Kingpin. But having the game is awesome, considering that Sopranos and Lord of the Rings are very similar layout. I will take Lord of the Rings any day for theme and rules. The rules are outstanding on Lord of the Rings. So,
what about reverse? What game is awesome, but the theme is just like, oh, I don't like this theme.
well, I think that's what he's asking,
reverse.
right? The theme, let's see.
The theme is awesome.
The theme is awesome, but I don't like. Well,
The game.
I'm a little old for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but I would be very interested in that pinball. But unfortunately, that game is not very deep. It's not very good. So I know there's a lot of kids a couple years younger than me who grew up on Ninja Turtles who are disappointed in that one. So that's one I can think of. I finally got a chance to play a Ninja Turtles at Expo this year, and it didn't play well, and so
And
that's too bad.
Yeah, unfortunately,
that's a
that
very
can
strong theme.
You can if you don't get a machine that's playing well, it can really.
You can ruin your whole opinion on it.
Yeah,
Like you're just soured on it forever.
Yeah.
I remember Spirit. I had played it, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then tried it at the show, and it was like, oh, this is very, very, very slow. And
There's a story there.
the legs had been installed improperly, and those guys are putting together so many machines. It's bound to happen, but just the machine not being leveled properly
Right.
just made it less than.
It was getting
enticing
stuck
to
in
play.
places that it should not have got stuck at.
Right.
So it spent most of the show turned off, and it wasn't until we got back here and put the proper legs on it that
Yes.
we're like, oh, okay, now this is the game. And I love that game. That game's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's what are some games that are, and you've said it about several that we have, like X-Files and Bram Stoker's and Starship Troopers. What are some extremely underrated games that you got to put some time on them before you're really gonna get them and really dig them?
Well, shout out to Greg, who's probably watching on Facebook. Deadpool. Deadpool is a great game, and it's a popular theme. But you really got to put a couple of games on it to really appreciate how well that game plays. I still like Munsters. Munsters is a really great theme. But one that I may have played or have played since then that I can think of that's sitting next door is Spy Hunter. It's not super deep, and it's kind of a one flipper game, but it is fun that you can, if you try to really exploit some of the rules on it, and it ends up being more of a endurance thing. Mm-hmm. And so part of competitive pinball isn't just making your shots and scoring points, it's being able to set up the endurance of standing there long enough, and what people like to call chopping wood, which is you stand there and you shoot the same shot over and over. Another one's Police Force. Police Force as a multiplayer game is not so great because there's a scoring mismatch. Mm-hmm. So you and I can be playing, and I can be great, and you can be terrible, and you can steal my score.
Because I play the ball after
you
unlock
made
something?
A certain shot and you just stole my score.
Really?
And so now all of a sudden our scores are flipped. That was a feature back in the day. Gottlieb did that a lot.
So
but by itself, that's a fun game. But it's the center ramp over and over and over.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's a challenge to just keep that thing going.
So competitive. Going back to competitive just a little bit, I noticed that there's a lot of, at least it seems to me like there's a lot of weight placed on tournaments over like someone sets a high score at one arcade versus someone sets a high score at another arcade. Those aren't really compared as much as tournament play. Do you find it to be true?
Well, you get bragging rights if you can put your initials on the game, just like in video.
Right.
So if you show up and you see, a guy and his name's all over that, you're pretty compelled to keep stuffing quarters in that to get your name above to the grand champion.
Yeah.
I'm chasing Maurice Smith right now on Elvira. He and I keep trading high scores, and so we're battling it out.
Good.
So there's some bragging rights. If I go to Logan and I put up a high score, hey man, I'm pretty happy about that. Even though the machines are identical and they're not necessarily set up the same, tilts could be adjusted.
Does it affect the play a lot, how a machine is set up? Like, how much can you really affect it?
Oh, very much.
Okay.
Very much. In fact, sometimes if you go to a competition and they say, "Oh, Twilight Zone, my favorite game," and I hop up to a Twilight Zone and I'm used to playing this one and I can get high scores over here, I go on that machine at the competition. I do terrible at it because it doesn't play the same.
To what you're used to. Yeah.
There's a great video out there. Keith Elwin has put out Pinball 101, and it talks about setting up the game and how it just the angles of the game and the flipper when you flip and how you flip can affect gameplay quite a bit.
Oh,
so
okay.
Another part of the challenge.
All right.
When you go to Pinburg, the World Championships, the machines are set up pretty hard, and so as a result, you don't want a game that people are playing for an hour. You got to have certain times, so they set the games up pretty hard, and the good players can compensate for that.
That's awesome. Again, if you're just joining us, we are joined this week by Ken Walker, our match tech over at Galloping Pinball. Make sure if you've got questions, we've got about another 10 minutes or so on the show, so if you've got questions for Ken, please make sure to put them in the stream chat. Tim Foley.
Some trash talk between Ghosty Devil and Uramic.
Tim Foley saying, I honestly don't think you can go wrong with the George Gomez game. What are some of the industry developers that you personally like a lot?
Oh, that can go
any artists
different ways too. Yeah, of course, I'm friends with Dennis Nordman, and I like his games. Elvira, all three Elvira games are Dennis Nordman games. He also did Demo Man and number of games that I love Dennis just because I love the guy, right? He's a friend. I like Greg Ferris' artistry, but I also like Paul Ferris. His drawings are amazing. I love the artwork on drawing a blank. Centaur, black and white, real goth, Mad Max. That was the whole game. Ride in the Mad Max theme. Real bizarre. Not one that you want to have in the kids' room, but I love it. And so I'm a Pat Lawler fan. I like his stuff a lot. I don't mind the stop and go. So there's kind of two rules of thought, whether you have a stop and go type game like Twilight Zone where you hit a shot and then wait for something to happen, or you have a flow game, which is sort of like the Steve Ritchie camp. And so then you get the offshoots like John Borg and George Gomez are sort of more of the flow group. Dennis Nordman's sort of the start and stop, and of course there's crossovers all over the place. So I do like Pat Lawler games, and probably because Twilight Zone, and to me that's one of the ultimate games out there. But I also like Lord of the Rings, which is a flow game, and so that's a George Gomez. So that's tricky, and then that's game design. Then you have the rules guys. So Keith Johnson and Lyman Sheets are fantastic rules designers. So I've seen so many times where a game will come out and someone will say, "Oh, this game's terrible and it's awful," and you give it 6 months or even 2 years, the rules change and the whole game changes. It's like someone took the game, threw it away, and replaced it with the exact same copy, and now everybody's in love with it. I saw that with Batman 66. Batman 66 got very little love when it came out. 2 years later, it's one of the top games out there. Same with Walking Dead. Those are two Lyman Sheets games. Keith Johnson, if you love Revenge from Mars, if you love Lord of the Rings, he did the Jersey Jack. He's the lead programmer at Jersey Jack, so Wizard of Oz. Fantastic programmer. Super deep. Simpsons Pinball Party. That's Keith Johnson.
Do you think that, and like obviously as the rule sets change and the game gets, they do updates and everything, that's part of it, but it seems like there's such a rushed opinion of things without letting it kind of grow out. And you look at games like Spy Hunter. When we picked that up, everybody was like, oh, you bought a Spy Hunter? And getting games on it and putting time into it. And it seems that people get an appreciation but are very quick to judge. And
well, Spy Hunter's kind of an interesting story. Because there's the reputation that people just kind of hear and believe without even knowing about it. And I was drinking that Kool-Aid when I saw it. I thought, Spy Hunter, I don't know. And you can kind of understand where people are coming from because the playfield's very asymmetric.
Mm-hmm.
There's some drain fest happening over on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
The upper bagatelle is kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's really worth shooting up there. But what you want to do is just keep hitting that spinner shot over and over, and that's sort of the safe shot. And it's kind of a contest to see how long you can keep that going. You make that go for 20 minutes, maybe, but it's tricky to do that, and you kind of get yourself into that mind zone of making that spinner shot over and over and over and scoring the points on it. So it's not really fair to say, oh, this game stinks because. It was different, and at the time they were trying to be different. Pinball was kind of dying at that time, and the designers and the manufacturers were trying to squeeze every quarter out of us that they could, and they were trying new innovative designs like the score stealing. Terrible idea by today's competitive standards. You can't use that machine. When we host league here or have competitions, I take it out. You can't use it, but it's a fun game. It's really innovative, and the artwork's fantastic. And so it's kind of hard to bash a game from 30 years ago because times were a lot different then.
Do you think that there's the same level of innovation in the machines that are coming out, or are developers relying heavily on theme?
It's easy to kind of fall into the trap of the fan layout, which is sort of your Attack from Mars, Medieval Madness, Monster Bash feel. But they work, right? We all love all three of those games. I was playing Medieval Madness last night. I love that game. And so the formula works, and so it's easy to kind of fall into that, well, we'll play it safe and have another great Attack from Mars kind of game. At the same time, I've seen some really great innovations of late. People pushing the envelope, and I'm thinking of like Total Nuclear Annihilation, which you can play at
Prince
Arcades. Yeah. That's a great game. It's a single level game. Looks really basic until you realize it's easy to learn, hard to master, and I put a lot of money into that game. That was the one game I thought probably be cheaper to buy this thing instead of keep playing it on location because it just took my money and laughed at me, and I love it. That is great. I love games that trash talk you, beat you up, all that kind of thing. So I'm seeing innovation, and right now everybody's so hungry for pinball. I'm seeing really good stuff. A lot of neat innovations.
Of the new games that have been announced, is there one that you're excited to play?
Or buy?
Oh, man. So I'm not a Rick and Morty fan. I don't know the theme very well. But I know someone locally who will be getting it, and so I don't need to necessarily pester you to get one. Or maybe it's you. I don't know. But
Who knows?
I know someone who's getting. Who knows? Maybe. But I know someone who's getting one, so I'm looking forward to playing that one, and it's exciting because there's a lot of hype around it. And I'm not really a fan just because I don't know the show. I've seen the clips; they're funny, but I'm not really into it as much as a lot of people are. There's a couple of rumored games out there, but I don't like talking about rumors because I really don't know until it happens that it's been confirmed. So there you go. Got to get swifty. I actually know that reference because I listened to a podcast this morning that talked about that.
Prestige asking what was the last game you bought and the last game you fixed.
Last game I bought was the Star Trek Pro, and the last game I fixed was, Greg helped me out. We fixed Elvira last night. I was working on Caveman, and I don't remember what I fixed. I fixed what I fixed. I put on the Siegecraft modification onto Medusa so that the LEDs don't flicker. So I did that last night. So, not last night, Monday. The days are running together. It's Wednesday already. Holy cow.
You mentioned
the rumored
games. Do you want to? What have you heard about?
What have I heard about?
What have you heard about?
I'm not saying.
Won't even say.
I'm not saying.
All right.
Because I've heard some rumors that have not come true, and I've heard some rumors that have been true.
Sure. That's why they're rumors.
Yeah. No idea. No idea what's true.
Stranger Things.
I've heard that rumor.
I've heard that rumor. Huh.
We do not speculate on rumors, though.
Another game I won't be able to afford or have room for in my house, so
You might be able to ask Doc for it, though.
I could.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Well, unless there are other questions, anything else you want to comment on before we close it up? It went by so quick. I think we need to have you back out pretty soon.
What hypothetical theme would you like to see? All right, I'm going to steal this one, but I think it would be
Prestige.
Awesome. Prestige 8881. One of the pinball podcasts I listen to. That's another thing I recommend people listen to some of the podcasts. There's a lot of drama out there, but that's okay. Listen to what you like and dump what you don't. I listen to the Bakbox Pinball podcast. It's all 80 pinball. All the guests are ladies, and the host is a lady. And she would like to see Princess Bride. I think Princess Bride pinball would be fantastic.
I would like that.
I'm an 80s kid. I grew up loving that movie. Swashbuckling giants. That would be fantastic.
The voice clips would be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Andre the Giant's on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Ultraman
pinball.
There you go.
What about some of the homebrew pins that you've seen, the one-offs? Any favorites?
Yeah, I really like being that Wonelli was a homebrew that turned production, and that Archer ended up getting Keith Elwin in the door at Stern to develop Iron Maiden. I really liked Archer. I did play it last year at Expo. It was in the same room as Galloping Ghost last year. That game was a lot of fun. I like Nightmare on Elm Street. Or Nightmare Before Christmas. Thank you. Nightmare Before Christmas. First of all, great movie. And I think that would be a fun pinball machine.
That would fit Doc's theme too.
Yeah, that would be a great machine. If they were able to get past the licensing, that would be fantastic.
Mm-hmm. That would be all
and that
right.
game was fun. So, another reason to attend pinball shows. You see a lot of oddball stuff that you can't play everywhere. So,
it's true.
Meet industry people.
What's the next big show that you recommend?
MGC is a good show up in Milwaukee. That's the Midwest Gaming Classic. Pinball at the Zoo, I haven't been in a couple years, but I missed that show. That show was a lot of fun. That was more of just kind of like a bunch of hobbyists getting together, and super fun. A lot of game trades, a lot of game for sale. That's in Kalamazoo, usually in April. That's a good show. Texas Pinball Festival's coming up. I don't know the dates, but I hear that show's pretty amazing.
Pinball Expo.
Pinball Expo, of course, is about a year away, but I'm looking forward to going to that again.
Yeah.
There's a location in Banning, California. They've got about 1,400 pinball probably the largest collection of pinballs that I know of. but they're only, because there's so many machines to maintain, they only open about 3 times a year in special occasions.
Yeah.
Arcade Museum in Banning, California. Thank you, Jason. Hey, Jason. Shout out to Jason. Fantastic pinball player, by the way.
Cool.
Yeah, the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. Tim Arnold's place.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, just get on the Internet Pinball Database for machine information, and IFPA Pinball for all kinds of pinball shows and tournaments. A lot of the pinball shows will also have tournaments. So if you just kind of want to check it out and see what it is. Yeah. Ghosty also says pinball map. There's a lot of apps about when you're traveling to find places. I ran into a guy last night at Brixie's who happened to be in town for work, and he made the trip out to Brixie's for the tournament last night. And I brought him over here just to let him know that this place is here. I let him know about Logan and some of the other places, and he's planning on coming here tonight. So
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, he's working out of Indiana,
Sure.
so this location is closest for him, and then he's going to try to get up to Logan as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I think that will about wrap it up. I thank you so much for joining us on your birthday, no less.
Yeah,
Happy birthday.
Is it really your birthday?
yeah, been trying to make this happen for a while. So
Yes.
Yeah.
it
Thanks
kinda
for coming
worked
on.
out. End of the year, all my afternoon meetings got canceled, so here we are. So thanks for having me. I appreciate
Absolutely. We definitely got to have you. But so much more to talk about, and definitely hope to have you back soon.
it. Cool,
And we will work on that.
and thanks everybody.
Yep. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. This is Doc Mack for Pete Hahn and Ken Walker. Hope to see everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks. We will see you on Monday for the Monday Mystery Game.
And we'll see you at the arcade.
And we hope to see you around the arcade soon. Thanks a lot, everybody.